Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to the Kendo UI R2 2022 webinar. My name is Carl Bergenham, and I'm joined by Alyssa Nichol and Catherine Grayson Nance. And I'm going to go ahead and start my screen so we can go through a couple of things right before we jump into all the nitty-gritty stuff with the latest release. So let me go ahead and do so now. So the first couple of things that I want to cover is we have a lot that we're looking at today, and you can see just here from this slide that we have a ton of components for Vue, jQuery, Angular, and React. And we're going to try to cover all this all at once throughout this entire webinar. So you will see that there's quite a lot that we will cover, but everything here will be, first of all, be recorded, and everything that we're covering here will be available in blog posts, our documentation, as well as our What's New pages. So if you miss anything, if you have to leave for a minute or two, don't worry, you can come back and still be able to catch up later. As I mentioned, everything that we're covering today is going to be recorded, and you can find that on our Kendo UI YouTube channel, which is under youtube.com/KendoUI TV. It's your favorite TV channel. Now, during this webinar, you'll see that we have a little chat box on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar interface. You can feel free to type in any and all questions that you have. And while you won't be able to interact with us like you might in a Twitch chat, we will still be able to answer your questions as we go along, because we do have a helpful crew behind the scenes that will be answering any and all questions. And of course, if we miss your question, we'll try to follow up as soon as we can afterwards. Additionally, we will be taking a look at the hashtag #HeyKendoUI hashtag on Twitter, so you can feel free to post your question there as well, and we have some folks monitoring that during the webinar, and of course we can easily follow up afterwards as well if we happen to miss a question. Now, speaking of Twitch, we do often stream on Twitch, and some of you might have already joined us there. We actually had a little sneak preview of what we're covering today last week, but you can find all of us, and this is not just for Kendo UI, it's all the Telerik products. You can find us streaming at twitch.tv/codeit live, and we have a ton of different shows you can dive into. It's really any and all interests. You'll be able to find something on this Twitch channel. It's pretty cool. Now, as I mentioned, we have a lot of highlights, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview here in terms of what's new for all the flavors of Kendo UI. So for Angular, we have quite a lot of new components. We have dark mode in the docs and demos. And as I mentioned, in the new components area, we have the PivotGrid in a beta, the map in beta, ListBox, grid layout, stack layout, etc. Now, on the React side, we have a new TaskBoard component. The map component also came across in the React component space. We have dark mode in the docs and demos there as well. A new and improved accessibility swatch, which you'll be able to find in all the Kendo UI flavors. React 18 support, so support for latest and greatest there. A couple of grid enhancements, and a new fun Create React app template tool that you'll be able to take a look at when we jump into React. And on the jQuery side, we have a couple new components as well, including the color gradient, circular progress bar. Same thing with dark mode and the accessibility swatch. We have a couple new features, of course, added to existing components. And we have a Visual Studio Code productivity tool that is brand spanking new with this release. And this is also available in Angular, by the way, and you'll be able to see a little bit more about that when we jump into the Angular section as well. And finally, on the Vue side, we have a ton of new components. So for those of you not familiar, on the Vue side, we first started with some wrap components, but now we're building a ton of native components built from the ground up. And as you can see here, we have 9 new UI components added in the Vue suite. And of course, existing components got some features as well. But more on that when we jump into those specific sections in a bit. Now, you might be wondering, well, when is that? When am I going to be able to see Angular, React, jQuery, and Vue? And we kind of see the schedule of what we'll be covering here today. So we'll start with Angular, then we'll jump into React, then we have jQuery and Vue. So this kind of gives you an idea also roughly about the times when things will start to kick off. So if you need to leave for a second and come back, you can easily do so and then be able to join in at the slot that you want to take a look at a little bit more. So I have taken my allotted 5 minutes in the beginning here, and I will be passing things over to Alyssa, who will be jumping into Kendo UI for Angular. So feel free to take it away, Alyssa.
Thank you, darling. All right. I will see about the taking away and the doing. Present, show my screen. I think you can all see the beautifulness that is my slides, perhaps.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. So yes, I also have a slide that outlines that, as Carl was saying, the intro, Angular, React, jQuery, and Vue sections. And I know that we have people from all over the world visiting, so sometimes it's hard for me to do time translations. So maybe math adding is easier for you. But I'm super pumped today to talk about the Angular Kendo UI updates. And I wanted to give you a little bit of, you might want to like screenshot this to go ahead and get those latest updates so you can play around with them and start implementing them. But to upgrade all of your packages, you can run this npx npm check updates command for @progress, or you can do them specifically for Kendo UI for Angular. And if it is successful, you should see the changes in your package JSON and package lock. So hopefully that's helpful. Let's see this one. There we go. So I'm going to start off with a question. Carl mentioned our Twitch channel, and I just want to ask it. It's not a poll question, but so just type in the chat if you came by our Twitch channel last week, or if you've heard of our Twitch channel at all on Code It Live. We would love to hear if you are utilizing that, if you even knew about it, if we're maybe doing a poor job of advertising it, or if you're loving it. So yeah, let us know. I'd love to hear that feedback in the chat right now. And for the most juicy details, Carl, of course, as usual, wrote a stellar blog post. This one outlines all of the Kendo UI frameworks. Ooh, getting some chat mentions. Awesome. Let me go ahead and pull up the chat. I should definitely have that off. There we go. Alyssa's a little quiet. Oh no. Okay. Okay. Awesome. And there will be a recording. I saw that question in chat. There will be a recording later, but I'll let them answer that. Okay. So this is the bit.ly link. It's going to take you to the article. We might peruse it in a minute if we have a second, but it has all of the details and maybe a little bit more. And so it's definitely the place to go to follow along with our update. For those of you who have been here with me before, I usually start with the new components and then dive into the new features on existing components. But today I thought, no, we're going to change it up. So we're going to go into the new features today first, and then we will touch on the new components last. So I want to talk a bit about V13. For those of you in the Angular sphere, you may or may not know, 14 is really close. She's really close. And I can't share the exact date unless it's been leaked already. Tell me in the chat if it's been leaked already so I can just like talk about it openly. But it's very, very soon that we'll have V14. But right now with V13, for those of you who may or may not know about what's going on with the Vue engine, with V13, Angular also changed the way that libraries are packaged. And so there's this APF, or Angular Package Format, that brings a lot of improvements and removes the requirement for NGCC. So while we were compatible with V13 from day one, in this latest update of Kendo UI for Angular, we did a full migration to the IB package format, which means that all of the packages are following this new APF format. We don't need NGCC anymore. I still have like one dependency in my app that needs NGCC. Carl, do I need to worry? Should I fear for that? It's unrelated to Kendo UI, but like, do you think V14 is when the ban hammer is coming for NGCC? I know that we're good to go, but
yeah, we'll have to see. But folks should be aware that that is probably coming at some point in the future. But maybe we'll have one or two more releases, and just to make sure that any packages that are lagging a little bit behind will be able to be updated to the new format.
Yes, I do have the nice little warning in my terminal right now about that package, and I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be some work. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But just know on the Kendo UI side, you are covered as of this release, and you just need to update to the latest version of those packages. Here we go. Dark mode and all the docs. Carl mentioned it, and I made this amazing GIF that you just can't live without. This is one of our new components that I'll be showing off and playing with in a little bit. But I wanted to, like, anywhere, obviously, in our docs, you can just toggle that gorgeous little sun moon button. And what's really cool is, as you can see, the actual code itself on the demo is updating into dark mode as well. So it's just very thoughtful, very beautiful. And I think Carl said it's like everywhere, right? It's not just Angular. It's like all the people, React, Vue, everybody's docs, I think, got dark mode. You can totally correct me if that's
all the Kendo UI
false.
flavors
Okay, cool.
did.
You'll hear me talk about it again in KendoReact.
Okay,
And I'll
perfect.
talk
That's
about it.
great. I just didn't want you all to come on and be like, no, it's just Angular. And I'd be like,
Oh no, we're gonna say it 3 more times. We're that excited.
I would love to hear in the chat. I'm a light mode person. I love light mode. So I honestly was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. But I think a lot of people are like really excited about this. So God bless it. God bless it. All right. We got across all of them, Carl touched on this as well, an ocean blue default, that's the name of it, theme color that you can swap out. And this was to aim at better accessibility. And it is now, I believe, the default in all of our docs that you'll see. Whoops, we popped to the next screen. And so I actually colored, this background color is that ocean blue default. But all of the docs that you see with the little demos that live load, they should now have this ocean blue. So if you're like, oh my goodness, what happened to orange? It's okay, it's still there. You can just swap out your primary color. And so that's what's happening here. I'm actually gonna go and show you real quick. Here we go. We're going rogue today, people. It's fine. It's totally fine. If we go to like light mode, it looks like the default theme here is going to be ocean blue. But if we go to dark mode, it looks like it plops it back to the main one here, main dark. But yes, ocean blue, which I think I was wondering, I was like, is it not allowed in dark mode? I don't think it's very compatible if you have a black background with your blue, but it's very pretty. I love it. And I think I'm hoping that Catherine will talk a little bit about, maybe share some of her wisdom on color theory and why it's more accessible during hers, but I'm gonna defer to her and go back to my slides. All right. So yeah, go to any of our docs, play around with that, and you can easily toggle it in your app if you love it, if you need it. We're waiting on this guy to animate. He's like very painful. I'm gonna get out of it and just go to the next one. It's fine. It's fine. It's a very painful animation. Okay. Visual Studio Code extension updates are next. And I do have, you might notice in some of my slides, this little QR code. You should be able to scan that. Hopefully they're all big enough, and it will take you to whatever link, feature, doc article, etc. that we're talking about at the time. And so this is, of course, our Visual Studio Code extension. And the team's been working on updating our productivity tooling. And with this latest update, the extension now has both code snippets and code scaffolding. And we're going to say that code scaffolding is more in beta just because, well, first of all, for those of you who don't know, code snippets are like quick little, like plop it in snippets, whereas code scaffolding is more as larger, like templating, right? That as like minimal changes needed from the dev type thing. And our code scaffolding bit is in beta because it doesn't have as much as we want it to, but you should throughout this year look for us to be rolling out more and more updates so you can have more templating options. So be on the lookout for that. This is me in my Tour of Heroes application that I redid with ponies, and that was just me taking a screenshot showing you what that productivity tool like looks like. And let me see, do I have another? Yes, there's a bit.ly link as well if you want to go download it. But this is going to lead us into our very first poll question. Yes, I did a drum roll for a poll question. So I think it's actually about productivity tooling and if you're using it, if you like it. So let me know when that poll question comes up because I don't see it yet. Please.
Yeah, I can help out here.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you feel about our Kendo UI productivity tools? And then the first answer is they look useful. I plan to try them. I already use them, or I don't need them. So it'll be interesting to see what folks are looking to pick up here. We're very excited about this new version. You might have seen that we've had some Visual Studio Code extensions before, but this is kind of written from the ground up. It's brand new, and this is aimed at really increasing your productivity when using the Kendo UI for Angular components. And we're hoping that it will definitely be something useful. And I see here that the majority of you are actually looking to try to use them in the future, which is very exciting. And a couple of you are actually already using the existing version as well, which is very interesting. And a few of you don't really need them, which is fine. You're super productive already. You're all rock stars, and that's great.
Awesome. Oh yeah, there's the results he was just talking about. Perfect. Thank you for answering that poll. Does help us out a lot. And for those of you who don't know, and I'll mention it again in feedback, we really do take your feedback very seriously. to use mold shape our products. So thank you. All right, pull next slide, please. Oh yes, the grid loading template. We're going rogue today. I'm gonna just be bringing us into Stack Blitz as I please, but I just had a lot of fun with our new features. Oftentimes our new features get overshadowed by the new components, and I don't know, I just had fun with this one. So the grid loading template, super easy to implement. And if for those of you who are like, what is she saying? So our grid, of course, I think I actually might have a little bit of code snippet here. Now, if it is loading in data, you can add this little directive, Kendo grid loading template, to the ng template. And it's going to do just a little convert. Well, in this case, we used our Kendo loader with the converging spinner. But if I go ahead and bring it up, there you go. I've got a GIF where you can see as I'm paging through the different data pages, you can see the spinners popping up as it loads in the data for that. So I think it's super great. I love, if this is kind of our flow in Kendo UI for Angular. When we customize something, it's often with just the little ng template tag, and there will be a directive, and then you can pass in either our components or custom things inside of it, and that's just our flow. But check out that QR code or that bit.ly link if you want to play around with the demo that's using that. I think this next one is actually the one, the no records template. I love it. I love these little templates. They get me so excited. I don't know, they're just little directives, but I'm like, yes, please. Thank you, team. I know the team is listening, part of them at least. So you're beautiful and wonderful developers, and I love you all. Let's go play around with it. Let's see, I gotta make this smaller, and then I'm gonna escape from here, and I'm gonna go back to this. This is the Stack Blitz link if you want to play with it with me. Angular-SX-GW-XF. You know, I thought, hey, there's not enough X's in our life, so let's just, I don't control the short link on that, but let us go ahead and check it out. I made this little demo. I forked it from our docs because our docs are like 10 out of 10. And I was just playing around with our grid, and I apologize for my internet. Sometimes when I'm streaming, things are like, I'm not gonna load that for you. And I'm like, thank you. So thoughtful, but it will load. But let me just show you what I'm talking about. We've got our little ng template here, our Kendo grid no records template. This one's gonna work very similarly words to the loading template. And here we have this Kendo icon and Kendo badge, and they're layering together, and it will load. I just apologize for my internet. I should have loaded it earlier, but of course I wasn't a thinker. So I made some data here so that I can show you once it has the data, it obviously goes away. But goodness gracious, she's like, oh, instantiating bundle. That means we're almost there. So I'll show that to you. There it goes. Okay. So maybe I should make it bigger. I could always make it bigger. So we've got our grid here, and there's no data available. And I think, let me know, like Catherine and Carl, if this is too small, but like, I think the font should be okay. Hopefully you can all see it beautifully. But I wanted to show, oh good. Okay. So we are pointing to our data to grid data. And right now, grid data in our component is just, it's pointing to nothing. I could also like take this away, and it would be very angry at me. But if I take it away and I populate with grid data, you can see it just pops in nicely. Everything's working. So I love this little template here. I'm going to highlight it so that you can see it. And I love that we're layering in our stuff, right? We've got our Kendo icon. Oh, you can, hang on. And then we're gonna smurp, and then we're gonna save it. There we go. You got our beautiful little icons that are layering, and then just a little paragraph that's explaining what's going on. But I love it. I love that they made this possible. Please go around and play with it. I'm gonna go back to this guy so that we can press play and go through it. Boop, boop, boop. Grid got quite a few. I think there's like 2 more, I want to say 2 more. Let's find out. Let us find out. 3 more, I believe. So the next feature that was added was sort multiple columns using the modifier key plus click. So this is what it looks like to go ahead and enable this with mode multiple and multi-sort key provided. And it's essentially, you can now sort the columns by holding down Control, Command, Alt, Shift, etc., along with clicking on it. And Carl, I'm wondering, was this because there were a lot of rogue clicks going on? Like, is that why this feature is?
It's really about multi-column sorting. So the default behavior that we've had so far when you sort multiple columns is that you click on a header, and then when you click on the next header, so header B, it will automatically start sorting by that column as well. However, if you want to unsort and just sort in, let's say, column C and introduce that, you would have to click through ascending, descending, and no sort on each one of the previous headers. But with this feature, you can now say that we only sort multiple columns when the modify key is pressed. And then if we click, let's say we have 3 columns that are sorted all at once, and we want to remove that sort and sort on a new column, we would just have to click on that column without pressing that modifier, and now the previous sort orders go away. So it's just an updated behavior. We've had multi-column sorting for some time, so it's really just some requirements, but some users might be expecting this, so we're just giving you the option. And rather than just constrain you with let's say Control, which might be a very default behavior on the Windows side especially, you now can provide any one of the key modifiers that you'd like to, depending on your requirements, and have that be responsible for allowing you to sort multiple columns.
Do you know, and this is like totally mean of me to put you on the spot, do you know if all the other like grids have this, like the React one? Do they have the multiple column sorting option?
Yes, we do have this in quite a lot of our grids, and it's just behavior that right now, we added in with Angular with this release. Some grids received it with the last release, actually. So you can find it now across most of our grids, if not all of them, actually, on the website, which helps out quite a lot. Even for those who are looking on the .NET side of things, we have this behavior added into some of the .NET suites as well with the previous release and this release.
Love it. That's awesome. I was like, maybe, like, I just couldn't wrap my head around, like, because we do already have, like you said, multiple column sorting, and I was like, maybe it's because people are just too click happy. Like, they're like, wait a minute, like, I get it now. I understand this. This makes sense. I think we're on to, nope, no, I was like, our last 2. I think we have one more. Expand and collapse all groups on our Angular grid. And so it's the ability, of course, as it says, to expand all groups within the data grid. And I think this one is our last 2 that I kept promising. And it is updated. We have an updated performance article and an external filtering example. So we're super excited about both of these. We really want to help our developers when they're using the grid create more performant grids. And to that end, we've updated our docs to have helpful guides. And so we've got this performance guide with that first link. And the second one is adding documentation for using external UI elements to filter through your Kendo UI for Angular data. And so as you can see in the URLs, all of this is nestled under grid. The first one, browser performance article, and then the second one is under filtering with external filtering. So I think that wraps it up for our grid features, which were chunky today. I'm checking in on time. It looks like I'm about halfway through. So I think we're doing okay. And Catherine has been so nice to say that if I step on her time a little bit, she'll forgive me. So, but next, let's talk about the rich text editor enhancement. And also if there's any like juicy questions, Carl or Catherine, feel free to interrupt, but let's talk about table resizing. Boo, boo, boo. Here we go. So table resizing, I think I was a little confused because I think this is the part where, Carl, in your article, you said there's 2 new features, but then there was 3 listed out, and I was like, maybe he doesn't count one of them as a feature. So let's go through the features and talk about it, and then if you think one of them is not a real feature, and that's why you were only saying 2, then we can clarify. But table resizing, use a built-in drag handle to resize any table element within the editor's content area. There's also pasting images now that you can just paste into the content area. And the last one is the caret color corresponding to font color. So it will now automatically update to the text color. But yes, maybe you didn't think the caret color was a feature. I think that's, I don't know. I was.
No. That is purely me writing the wrong number. So that is just a written mistake.
when I was like, he does not like the carrot color. Wow, that's rude. Like,
Yeah.
I
I love all the
that.
features
Okay.
equally. They're all great. No, so
You know, he has to say that. Don't believe him. He doesn't like the carrot. It's fine. But if you want to check out our rich text editor enhancements, go underneath /editor/tools and feel free to play around with those. Exciting new features. Next up is our scheduler highlighting events in real time. I think, yes, that screenshot is there, but I also put in a code snippet so you could see the highlight ongoing events being passed true with the striped event. And the style is now associating with highlighting events in real time. And it can be customized, obviously, through CSS or Sass for whatever your team needs it to look like in the scheduler. This was an exciting new feature that we got. Let's see, I think that covers this one. Check out scheduler/views. And then just scroll down, I think like 3 sections to the highlighting ongoing events because nobody wants to type out that URL. If you want to check that out.
Speaking of the URLs, we did have a question in chat where someone's asking if your PowerPoint is available, where if they can copy and paste the links, what's the best way that they can get these links?
Yes, I know that usually we share them out via email. Would it be, how do we feel about me trying to make a link right now and pasting it in chat for people? Is that also weird?
Yeah, I know. I think the easiest thing to do actually, if we remember the URL for the What's New blog post, that will actually contain all the links that Alyssa's mentioning here. So Alyssa, it's great that you have the Bitly links can help for the folks who are really quick with typing. But this release will contain links to all the features that we're talking about today. Not, to toot my own horn and talk about my own blog post.
No, you should. That article is big.
It's a good blog post.
Thank you. Okay,
grab this real quick. 3L AZHGX caps do matter, and I'm gonna go show it just so that you're like, yes, I'm in the right place. Although I think, weren't you all saying that like you could also just go to our docs and there's like a banner that links to it, maybe, or no?
It's everywhere. If you go to any one of our pages, we are trying to make sure that you are aware that we have a new release, so you'll be able to spot it.
This one, so you can scroll down. I don't know why jQuery is first. It's not like it was alphabetical or anything. I'm partial. I'm always partial. It's fine. We love you, jQuery. Let's go to Angular. If you scroll down, as Carl was saying, like, right, what was I just talking about? I was just talking about the boop. Nope, not you. I think we were talking about the scheduler, were we? Yes, we were talking about the scheduler. So if you scroll down throughout each of these headers, you should, I'm of course going backwards, so you're welcome. Go check out the features and you should be able to find the updates. So these were the 3 where Carl says 2 features, and I was like, wow, he hates carrots. That's why. But yes, this is the Angular scheduler, and then at the bottom of each synopsis that he provides is a link to the docs. But also, I do believe we'll be sending out the slides with. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy. I made it show we are sending them out. I don't know. Right? We can send them out. I will actually tweet it, and my Twitter handle will be at the very end. So that'll be an easy way for you to get a hold of it. So we talked about the scheduler highlighting events in real time. Now we're going to go on to our conversational UI. So input area customization. With this release, you can now customize what type of input you're exposing to a user. And I think, no, I was like, I think I had more of a, Carl, I had a question about this one, and I'm just going to like play through it again. So on this one, I was like really getting confused. So this one is on the input text area, you get to customize like everything they see, like message.
Yeah, so it's all about that input area that you see down there to the enter message area, right? And essentially previously you just had a plain input, which of course you could type as much as you want in there, but it's just one regular text box. So multi-line would be a little bit complicated. So what we've done here is allow you not only to say, well, I prefer to have the input to be either single line or multi-line, you can also to an ng template, be able to completely customize that if you have some additional type of components that you want to be able to display there. So it's really just to give your users that are actively actually typing into the component, be able to, you know, if there are any specific things or extra requirements that you have around the input, or just if you prefer to make it easier to see the message on multiple lines, you can just, that's a one quick configuration option, and then you have the template to be able to extend it even further.
I see. Okay, thank you for explaining that. I think we covered migration to the Ivy package format, dark mode, ocean blue, grid, and all of the updates with our rich text editor, scheduler, and conversational UI. But we did skim a little bit for time's sake. I'm just checking that now. So we're going to go into new components, but do check out the beautiful, beautiful article that Carl wrote. We're going to jump into components, and we have a pivot grid. I think last release, I'm going to maybe say that React got the pivot grid, maybe. Potentially. Catherine, did that happen? Watch me test your knowledge and memory.
We've had a pivot grid, not to like flex, but we've had a pivot grid for a couple of releases now, I think. So
it's totally fine.
Congratulations, I'm glad you caught up. I'm joking.
I'm
completely joking.
For those of you who can tell, she likes React and I like Angular, but you know, we will rule the world one day, and so it's fine. She can have her React.
It's a friendly rivalry. It's completely peaceful.
Yeah, there's no actual shots fired. Okay, pivot grid, we finally have it. Super excited about it. For those of you who don't know what pivoted data is, I will leave that to Carl to explain, because he's told me like 3 times and I still don't understand the difference between pivoted data and normal grid data. But I did want to highlight that this was not, we did not take the grid and modify it. We built it from the ground up for pivoted data, and it can do automatic binding with directives for local or OLAP data. And I don't know if it's OLAP or you're supposed to actually say OLAP, but I'm calling it OLAP data. So check out component/pivot grid. And Carl, do you have anything to add on pivoted data?
Pivoted data, some folks really need it, and that's why we built this from the ground up to make sure that it's not just a data table that, you know, has some fancy columns on the, or headers on the left-hand side, which is generally how you can tell that it's pivoted data. If you see in the screenshot, right, the regions, the countries, and the ability to expand and collapse them, that's when you start realizing it's pivoted data. So yeah, this is something brand new, written from the ground up, and this initial version is a beta where we're focusing on data binding. So you have an OLAP cube, which if you're not familiar with pivoted data, that's a very important piece, and I also call it OLAP. I hope I don't have to say every letter individually. And then we also have local data, because, you know, OLAP cubes can be complicated to set up, and I don't know how to set one up, for example, so it's much easier to be able to take some data. And with local data, it can be any JavaScript array, right, and collection of objects that you want to be able to bind to the component. So we focused on data binding for this particular release, and then we'll continue to add features of functionality going along as we start targeting, you know, V1 in the upcoming months, and you'll be able to see much more added, of course, to the pivot grid in the future.
Nice, I love it. Check it out. Let us know in the chat if you're excited about this. If you live and breathe OLAP data, I want to know that. I want to know these kind of things. Maybe I need to like get into the OLAP data. I don't know. I'm usually just on the normal grid data side of life, but I'm excited that we finally caught up to our old friend React. And this next one is also in beta. The map. Oh, yes, that's beautiful. Please scan the QR code and play around with it. It has so many cool, I don't know if I have time. I was checking the time because I wanted to show you all of the crazy layer options. So our Angular map can bind to various online providers like OpenStreetMap and bind to GeoJSON, which is specifically focused on drawing geographical locations. But wait, there's more. It supports custom layers. And I wanted to show the custom layers. So 3S, EB, SMP. We're going to go to it. We're going to go to it. We're going to prove that my... Yes,
I'm going to jump in real quick and tell y'all that we did actually get this one in React as well. This is one that was released at the same time for both of our frameworks. So if you are hanging around waiting for the React stuff and we're just kind of tuning out, now's your time to tune back in and catch this excellent demo, because we have all the same fantastic features in the React map. So
that
go ahead,
bit.ly was a lie. It was a lie. All right. Just got to go to /component/map. I love you all, and I apologize. I don't know. I got bit.lys flying right and left. It's too hard to keep up. I'm very apologetic, but That'll take you to our pivot grid, and you can go over to the the sidebar here and scroll down to map. That should not be too hard to find, especially with these beautiful little tags here showing you who got the updates, who's new, and who's in beta. But let me scroll down to the layers. Oh my goodness. I need to see the, hang on, getting started. I'm gonna let that load. And then I'm also, oh, I love it. I'm gonna open up the map layers one, and I wanna show you an overview. So we're gonna go over to this tab. So there are multiple layers that you can customize and use on top of the maps, which I find just fascinating. Tile, shape layer, bubble map, and marker layer. And of course, we've got some really fun demos showing you how to, and yes, the scroll, in case you're wondering what is going on with my screen right now, the scroll controls the zoom on maps. And so it's not broken. I am just scrolling like a maniac over it. But let me show you one of my favorite, which brings a lot of anxiety to some of my friends, but I think they're adorable. I want to show you the bubble map layer that you can do. Isn't that cute? I don't know. Catherine was like, that's not cute. That's stressful. I was like, it could be about who has like the most ice cream shops. You don't know. Like, you don't know what those bubbles are.
I was just like, maybe I've just been looking at too many like pandemic maps. It gave me a little flash of like, and you were like, why not ice cream? And you changed my whole outlook. Now I'm pretty sure this is just a measurement of like ponies per capita.
Ponies per capita, exactly. Yes, for those of you who don't know, I took the Tour of Heroes app that John Papo wrote, and I redid it with ponies. It is available on GitHub, and it's what I use actually to demo all of our new components. And so that's why ponies per capita, because Alyssa loves ponies. But I'm really excited about our map. Carl says it's in beta. We shouldn't believe him. It looks ready to ship to me. He's probably going, don't do it. No, I honestly have seen so many of our beta tags just fly off so quickly that it's hard for me to believe it when the team says something is in beta. I'm like, is it though? Or is it just right there? It's right there. So it has a lot of features. Go play around with the Angular map. And I think React also, as we mentioned, got it. So if you're into the React world, go check it out. That's a live a bit.ly. I'm just going to delete it right now so no one looks at it. But this QR code hopefully takes you to the map. But again, if you end up at the pivot grid, that's not such a bad place to land in life, is it? No, it's not. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's check our time. We're doing okay. Next up is the ListBox. She is brand new, looking good. She's not in beta. She's ready to play with. So this is a UI component that can display a scrollable list of items, and then you can either you can have multiple list boxes with moving them back and forth, or you can just use a singular list box. Apologies for I don't even know if you can see the notifications from my GDE Slack. I think I'm missing an Angular GDE meeting right now. So they're talking about features. It's fine. I'm not hurt. I would much rather be here with you in this beautiful webinar, but I apologize for I really should figure out how to do not disturb mode, but that takes a lot of mental effort to figure out. So this is a bit.ly link. I wanted to actually go to it. So let's go and open up our list box, see if Alyssa messed up. Because after this, we've got 2 more beautiful components before we pass it over to React. I'd love to hear how many of you are anxiously waiting at the edge of your seats for the next section. I just don't want to disappoint you. If you're all like, we need React now, then I can pass the mic off early. But I love you, Deborah. Deborah Carrata, everyone. She's amazing. I think it's like this button. See how complicated this is? It's really complicated. You had to click like 3 buttons. That was hard. Okay, so we're on the list box. We're going to make it bigger. This is the list box. There are multiple here, and it's using our gorgeous new ocean blue default color theme. And you can choose, this one's sorting countries, to move them from one list box to the other. You can use these to organize back and forth, or be like all over here, all over there, right? It's beautiful. I love it. It's kind of, I think it's my favorite. I think she wins the medal. Maybe. The next 2 are really exciting. And I have another demo to play around with. So we're going to get to it. But did anybody in the chat, Catherine or Carl, say they want me to stop talking about Angular and pass off the mic, or do I have a little bit more time? Where are we feeling? We have more time.
I've seen
okay.
No, in fact, most people seem excited. Some feedback
Okay.
that folks are very excited about the bubble maps, that's awesome. Great content, etc., etc. Thank you. This rules. Like, this is some very exciting stuff.
Cool. As long as they're not rioting in the streets for like React now, then we'll just keep going and we'll get to React in 1 minute, I promise. Okay, last two, and you need to tell me, Catherine, if you have these. Do you have these? The last two are grid layout and stack layout.
Yeah. Carl's like
so excited.
Yeah.
Carl's
Yeah. Sorry, friend.
What is? Oh, he's saying no, or he's saying yes. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah,
we
yes. Have these.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm nodding,
I see.
but
That's why
slightly to not give it away.
Angular's behind. I gotcha.
No, it's not so much about behind. It's all about you know, what the current customer demand is. Yeah.
And we've got different goals. We're going different places. You get a bunch of components in this release, and I only got 2. So
I know. I'm not complaining. I'm just listening to these React lovers try to justify. All right, it's fine. It's fine. We both have over 100 components, so I think we're all good. Like, you know, it's like really what more? But this is so cool. I love this because grid gives me nightmares. So anything to make grid easier. Seriously, Catherine's so good at it, and I take one look at like my grid in CSS, and it all breaks, and I'm like, I didn't do it, I swear. And it's very complicated, but I'm super excited that we now offer a way for you to implement a CSS grid layout without needing to write any CSS. And Kendo-grid layout is how you get it, and both the grid layout and the stack layout that I'm about to show off in demo are underneath the layout umbrella. So like when you npm install, it's going to be the layout umbrella, the mama component, as I like to call it. I do have some, I'm sorry, I should have provided those earlier for you. And now I will go back because I am very, very bad for not doing so. I have a bit.ly link and a QR code that you can scan and pull up the grid layout. The grid layout is going to be very similar though to not only implementation, but just what it's doing, right? Because they're both controlling layout. And so I'm going to demo the stack layout, but this, if you're very interested in the grid, this is the link to that. It is beautiful, and you can go to it, and hopefully it brings you not to the PivotGrid again. But, you know, again, if you keep ending up at pivot, it's not that bad. Last one, I promise, for all of you people who are like, please React or jQuery review. The stack layout, super pumped about it. I don't know why we avoided saying the words flexbox. I was kind of wanting to ask Carl about this. Because when we explained the other one, we used the word grid, but when we explained this one, we didn't use the word flex. And I was like, are we like trying to like pretend like this isn't flex behind the scenes? Do you know?
No, it really just is that one's called the stack layout component, one's called the grid layout component. So we're just trying to make sure the terminology kind of, you know, it's consistent. Totally yeah. Yeah, we're not trying to hide anything under the hood.
Okay. So check out this bit.ly. We're going to actually run over to a custom little bud that I forked. So I'm leaving it on the screen for like 1 more second. Like screenshot it or get your phone out to take a picture. Let us go. Okay. This one. So I have the stack layout loaded. Yes, I was debugging it in the inspector. So here, can I make you smaller? You're kind of in the way, and I want to make this as big as possible. And we can go ahead and open you in a new window, and I'm going to put you over on the right side of the screen and you on the left side of the screen. Oh yeah, that's better. That's much better. And now we can have both open because we are true champions. And I'm just going to like zoom in way higher than any of our developers ever wanted me to zoom in. You're welcome. Okay, so at one point I was like, this was years ago, I was at a meetup, and this one company asked us to just look at their product just so they could watch us try to use it. And one of the designers was there, and they saw me. I have very bad eyesight, so of course I wasn't streaming at the time, but I just Command plus the crap out of it. Like I was like zoomed in, and he was walking around watching everyone use the product, and he goes, how did you get it to look like that? And I said, I just Command plused it all the way up. And he goes, why? So it's very funny. Oftentimes devs.
That's
or
accessibility,
designers,
baby.
They don't plan
Like-
on you doing things that you do.
No, half joking, but half serious. I mean, that's part of making things accessible. And I would say, I mean, it worked. Our components still look good.
No, they still look good. I know
Out there,
if any of
kudos to our
designers,
developers.
if there any of them are cringing at like why you do this, it's not out of angst at all, loves. It's just blindness on my part. But let us look at this beautiful boop boop. Where are we? Here we are. Down here, we've got our Kendo stack layout, brand new component. As you can see, for those of you familiar with either grid or flexbox, just in CSS, gap should be very, yes, I know what gap is doing. And so I'm actually going to make you a little bit smaller so we can see those gaps. So if we go from 15 to maybe a 30 gap, you'll see it just widens the space between each element in this stack layout. We also are passing it orientation. This is because we have a little toggle button here that's floppity in between horizontal and vertical. But if I want to go ahead and override this, I'm going to take off this type of binding and say I want it to be vertical, and make sure I spell the word vertical properly. Okay, so now our cards are stacking vertically, but I did want to show off that we are doing Kendo cards here, but it could be anything, right? Any element that you want, it's just a layout. So here, if I go ahead and make a bunch of empty boxes, because who doesn't want a bunch of empty boxes? And I copy paste them and I'm like, wee, and you can see here in the styles, it's just a 300 pixel box. You can see that they are doing the exact same thing that our Kendo cards are doing. And then if we change this from vertical to horizontal, yes, I spelled it correctly. Exactly what we expect it to do. We got the side scroll going for days, which is what everyone wants. But yes, I wanted to show that off. I love that as well. It would be great if we could just plop this, or maybe Cindy, you have it actionable while I wrap, because that really does have all the links, and I will tweet out again the deck for you beautiful peeps. My Twitter handle is coming forthwith. We just have to get through the animations together, but we will survive it. Okay, as I mentioned, we really do take your feedback seriously. I have seen time and time again our developers and designers talk about feedback that they've received and just how they're going to roll that into the next feature or roll that into the next component. And so please head to our feedback portal if you have any thoughts at all, comments, inquiries, questions, features, or components that you would like to request. My name is Alyssa Nigel, and I like to stream often on Code It Live. These are some of the shows I have going right now. UI Mondays, the amazing Catherine joins me, and as well as on Fantasy Fridays. What is else? And as promised, that is my handle. So hit me up with questions. I think I did go over a little bit. Forgive me, Catherine, but I think we're ready to wrap, and I will tweet those slides out. And thank you. You all were a beautiful chat today. I really loved hanging out with you. I think that's it for moi.
All right, then I will take it over and start getting my screen shared. And while I'm doing that, actually, I saw a couple things in the chat ever since our poll where people were asking about the productivity tools. And so I was curious if y'all can maybe explain just what those are, because there's something that Angular has gotten that React has not, in case you're keeping tally.
What? No, okay. False
I don't know the
news.
answer.
False news isn't a thing. Fake news. False news. I
Fake
just made it.
news.
It's the fake news for developers. False news. No.
False news.
I saw when I was like trying to get the screenshot for our Visual Studio extension, I saw that I think React has their very own one. Carl, I'm going to need your input on this. is this true?
Ooh,
And
did I
why
put
do
my
you hate
foot in my
this?
mouth? We'll find
No,
out.
no, no. So essentially, we already had some extensions existing for all the flavors of Kendo UI. But what Angular received with this version, as well as jQuery, is an update to that, essentially moving beyond what we had previously, which was kind of like a bootstrapping tool. And now we're adding more productivity-related features into the suites. Now, for React and Vue lovers, that is coming soon. You'll be able to see that on our roadmap, and that is something that we'll be working on over the next couple months. But the big thing is the scaffolders, right, which the name kind of gives it away, but allows you to create kind of bigger chunks of your application using some of our components and common scenarios. And then the code snippets are ways for you to be able to very quickly create the markup for our components. So in the Angular world, you type KA, and then you get some auto completes for all the different components that we have. And then, for the grid, you might, KA grid, hit enter, you get a full kind of declaration of the grid on the page. And then you can do the same thing with any sub components as well. So you can go down the hierarchy, and it just has this nice autocomplete to just save you on keystrokes. We only have so many keystrokes in our fingers in our lifetime, so why not make sure that we type as little as possible and still be able to add all the components.
Depressing things to us, Carl?
Oh, it's not depressing.
Yeah, and it's just that each of us are born with a set number of keystrokes, and why waste them on Angular?
Oh, no, that's rough.
Words.
That's rough.
Literally yesterday, I was like my husband and I share an office, and I was working on like some of our code, and I was like, oh, I love Angular. Oh, and he's like, quiet down over there. He's an Ember lover. He was like, hush it up. And I was like, it's just so easy to use. So I don't know, different strokes. It's fine. I forgive you all for not seeing the true light of day. So onward and upward.
Speaking of onward and upward, time to talk about React. I'm done. I promise I'm done. So we've got a handful of cool new stuff for y'all. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. You saw a little bit of this earlier. We talked about it for just a hot minute. This is an example of our new Ocean Blue swatch. And as Alyssa mentioned, it is really focused on creating the most accessible experience possible. This is something that you can use kind of straight out of the box. You don't have to worry about doing your own theming. If this is not something that is of particular interest to you, you're not someone who enjoys putting together colors, making your own color schemes, we've got just a whole set of really lovely swatches, and this is our newest one. This blue was specifically chosen, again, to meet color contrast ratios and to kind of make sure that we have enough of a contrast that's been created between foregrounds and backgrounds so that everything that you're creating is always hitting that double or triple A accessibility standard. There we go, the WCAG standards for accessibility. So while all of our components already in terms of functionality are meeting that level of accessibility, now you can make sure that visually you're hitting that as well, without having to run color contrast ratios yourself or pick out colors, any of that. As lovely as the orange is, it can be a little tricky to do accessibly. So this blue is another great option that you've got in your pack. There we go. And again, kind of similarly to what we talked about before, dark mode is here for all of our docs and demos. Unlike Alyssa, I am a big dark mode person. I was exceedingly thrilled to see this because selfishly, it just made my own life very much easier. And one of the things that I thought was kind of fun was that this last week during Config, Figma announced their own dark mode announcement, shared their own thing. And so now if you are using our Figma kits, our Kendo UI Figma kits, you can have the dark mode experience all the way across, work your way through, make your Figma edits, check the docs, do your own application building, never look at a light screen. Really everything we've ever hoped for. But no, it looks really sharp. It's something we've gotten questions before about as well, in terms of implementing dark mode and how our components look in dark mode. So it's a really quick and easy way, as Alyssa pointed out, you can go see the dark mode actually implemented in each one of our demos. So if you ever wanted to get a feel for what things might look like, you can just hit that light switch button top right and go over to the dark side. So if you are in the React world, then you know we had a big release recently, and that is something that is less common for us than it is for Angular. So it's kind of a big deal. React 18 is out. I believe they've like even put out a patch version or two by now. I think we're like 18.1. But that came with it a bunch of wonderful new features, a bunch of kind of concurrency stuff that we didn't have before. It is really amazing, really easy to implement, and most importantly, fully backwards compatible. So we are proud to say that we are officially compatible. We have run everything, double checked everything. We have had that support since day 0, but since this is our first release since the React 18 release, we can go ahead and tell you, you don't have to worry about anything. Upgrade with full confidence. Everything works. We've checked it all, we've tested it all, and we're starting to look at ways that we can start to integrate the new React 18 features, especially some of the concurrency rendering stuff, into our own components. So if there's anything that you'd especially like to see, or something where you think a component would benefit maybe from something like that, drop us a line in the chat. We're open to suggestions. We will keep you posted if there is ever something where we build it in and React 18 becomes a requirement, but that's not currently the case, and you can go ahead and update and take advantage of everything new and exciting in React 18 with no worries at all about Kendo functionality. In fact, I'm not sharing my Kendo demo app here, but I have gone ahead and updated it to React 18. So if you want a little bit of
I wish we had time. Your app
proof.
is so cool, and it's just like it's like, okay, seriously, she redid it into like this I'm gonna butcher it because I'm not a Trekkie, Star Trekkie dashboard thingy, and it looks so cool. And every time because she used our like Figma kits and Unite UX to basically rewrap all of our components in this Star Trekkie vibe, anytime she throws in a new component, it's just already Trekkie. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you should seriously check out some of the recordings of her like showing it off on Twitch, because mwah, it's a beautiful demo. That is all. Must go now.
But no, that is on my GitHub. So you can find that, Catherine Grayson Nans. Look it up. Or again, any of our Twitch shows, I do have it up on there all the time from the live stream that we did, the release live stream. But yeah, nope, tested it out personally. You can get the Catherine Grayson Nans guarantee for whatever that is worth, probably less than I would like it to be. That being said, on to the next new thing. We have got a really handy set of new templates to be used with Create React App. So Create React App allows us as library providers, maybe is the right word, to build templates on top of what they provide. So we can go ahead and add some new things that fold right into the way that Create React App already works, but just naturally works in all of the Kendo setup stuff that you will need to kick off a brand new app using KendoReact. So there are, I believe, 4 different new templates that you can take advantage of that offer you varying combinations of vanilla JavaScript versus TypeScript and vanilla CSS versus Sass in any combination that you would like, whether that's, you know, vanilla JavaScript and Sass or TypeScript and Sass or et cetera, et cetera. So you run those and they will go ahead and kick you off. If you've ever used Create React App before, it's just a way to start a new project and not have to worry about doing all of the boilerplate yourself. And so with these templates, that just goes ahead and includes all the stuff you need to set up KendoReact, and imports a couple of components for you, installs some of our most commonly used libraries. Yeah, just really makes it super, super easy to start something new and not have to spend nearly as much time in the setup part, because that's not the fun part, right? Like, I would rather be coding.
Personally, wrestling NPM dependencies is
you
like
love it, NPM. Yeah. I love to troubleshoot a build issue. That's what got me into development.
You're like this. I want to do this all day long.
I was like, yeah, writing CSS is fun, I guess, but I would rather deal with Webpack. So, oh man. All right, new component time. I believe this is the one that is currently exclusive to KendoReact. So I'm very excited about it. Because I think this was actually one that I asked about, like, I want to say like a week or two after joining. I was like, how do we feel about a task board? And they were like, yeah, we're one step ahead of you. It was already happening. They were like, cool, thank you, new girl. Here's the plan. And now it is finally in the library, which is incredibly exciting. So if you've ever used Trello or done any kind of the like Jira style task board, this is a very, very similar experience. It allows you to implement this in your own applications, customize it however you like. All the cards and the columns are drag and drop. And so you can quickly move things around, reposition things, recategorize things. And of course, I just
want you to show it in your app. It's so beautiful. Okay, that's all.
I don't have it running right now. I wasn't planning to do demos. I usually maybe that's really like
the task board in, and it's like mwah, like it's just done. It's so good. I loved it. If you missed the Twitch stream, you got to go watch the VOD. Is it VOD or do people spell it out? Anyways, but sorry, Catherine.
Oh no, it's all good. No, I usually try to like, I don't know why, but I focus my like demoing and looking at the code during the live stream time, and then spend the webinar time really talking about new components and the details of each one. So I don't tend to do a lot of demoing and coding during webinars, but I can be swayed. Maybe next time. But no, so create your own Kanban board, create your own issue boards. Obviously the one in this example we've set up in your kind of standard like to-do thing where you've got your to-dos in progress done. But you can rename those, you can customize how the cards look, you can add images, remove images. I think in mine, I changed the layout so that you could see the priority of each task right on the face of the card without clicking through. That is wonderful and completely customizable and highly useful. So definitely make sure and check that out. And I'm keeping an eye on the comments, so I just want to call one out there. Someone asked, is there anything we need to do to the components when updating to React 18? And no, there shouldn't be. It should be completely backwards compatible. Personally, I was able to do that. Just go ahead and obviously there's non-Kendo related things that you need to do, mostly in how React 18 is implemented, the like create root and React DOM stuff at the very I was just at the very beginning, like that's a thing. But where your app actually hooks into the HTML of the page, the way that that is handled is different in React 18. So you might be seeing some errors there, but there should be nothing.
They can check out your demo too to like see a use case of that, right?
Yes.
Because you already, okay, cool.
Exactly. Yep, that was my hope, is that you can go ahead and check that out. I will pull up at least the GitHub for that once we are through the slides so that we can take a peek. But I won't put you through waiting for the application to build locally. The other brand new component that we got this release was the map. And Alyssa's already done a fantastic job of deep diving into that and everything that comes with it, all the different layers, the things you can hook into, the bubbles, the pinpoints, the ability to draw shapes and all sorts of stuff. You can hook it into things like OpenStreetMap. Go ahead and get layers imported in from elsewhere, and it's just really handy. It's just really nice. It feels always really lame. I feel like I end every component like that where I'm like, and it's cool. Like,
oh no.
Can you not hear me?
Can you hear
Carl's?
me? I don't know. Either they can
Yes.
hear me or they can hear you. Someone is not hearing, but I hear all of you now, so we're good.
Good. Carl's been nodding along like he can hear me the whole time, which I find encouraging. So thank you
That's
for
what
that.
I'm here for. I'm encouraging everybody.
Oh, man. So, but yeah, the ability to go ahead and get that worked in. It is, again, technically a beta. That's just an opportunity for y'all to implement it and let us know what you think it needs, how you're using it. We want to hear more about your use cases and things that you like or dislike. And we'll just continue to tweak it and make sure that it is fully accessible and meets the high standard of all of our other components before we are ready to pull that beta tag off of it. But you know, if it's just like a really finished beta, there's no shame in that game, right? Like maybe this is the RC.
Our devs are gonna hate us, Catherine, because we're like, don't listen to the beta.
Just use it. It's fine. Yeah.
Beta. Like,
no, I support their choice to release it as a beta. I think it really honestly speaks more to the incredibly high bar that we set than anything else. Because you can look at this and I think it would be easy to just be like, it's done. But that's not the attitude that I've ever seen with our development team. So it's 90% is never good enough, which I think is amazing with them. It's something I really admire. So beta for now, but you know, it's 90, 95%, throw it in. Tell us what you think. So on the KendoReact side, another thing that's definitely worth highlighting is the attention that we've been paying to our documentation recently. And all of our getting started pages have been updated to make it a little bit easier for you to get going and to for people who are new to both React and to Kendo to jump in and know where to start and where to kick things off. And as always, you can reach out. Our support team is fantastic, really responsive and really, really helpful. So if for whatever reason, all of the brand new information on our getting started pages is still leaving you perhaps a little bit confused, reach out. But I think we've really done a good job updating our docs and making it even easier than before to get your feet wet with Kendo. Now, a couple of improvements to our existing components. We have got updated drag and drop functionality on our data grid, which is really nice, making it easy for you to drag multiple rows at once and to do the auto scroll on drag so that when you like pull it down to the bottom, it'll scroll with you. Just little touches that make it a lot more user-friendly and a lot more intuitive. One of those things, again, where the 95% wasn't good enough. We caught something that was small and annoying and we fixed it. And we're happy to do that every single time. I think it's part of what sets us apart. Similarly to Angular, so I won't touch on this one for too long, we also got table resizing in our editor. So again, now you can kind of highlight the table, you get the little like drag and drop handles on the side, you pull it, it is exactly what you would expect from resizing an object. And this one feels little, but is in fact incredibly huge. Over the entirety of the KendoReact library in these last, I guess, couple of months since the last release, we've made 30 improvements and 200 bugs that have been fixed. Like, that was a clunky sentence. We have fixed 200 bugs and we have made 30 improvements. That is huge. And while not every one of those is big enough to get its own slide, because otherwise you would be here perhaps until the heat death of the universe, I'm really, really impressed and amazed by all the like small little tweaks. If you do want to dig into this, we do have a complete changelog that's available, and you can see each and every little bit that we've updated. But on the whole, just take it to mean that KendoReact is smoother than ever, it is more performant than ever, and if you find a bug that we missed, send it to us and we will happily make it our 201st. But that is it from me on the React side. If there are any questions or anything that I missed, definitely holler.
I feel like we were promised a GitHub link. Also,
correct.
Carl, I saw the comment. I love that chat is missing your mead mug.
Yes,
that
the
makes
giant bug.
Yeah, some of you may have noticed that I'm in a slightly different location. I am visiting our Sofia, Bulgaria office this week, and I'm sitting in one of our conference rooms, so that's why if my audio is a little bit echoey, or if you saw when the lights dimmed on me because I've been trying to sit as still as possible to be on camera, that's kind of what you're seeing here. But it's, you know, I think I've got an okay setup here. It still looks fairly okay. I got the plant in the background, right?
Oh yeah, it looks so. It's so funny.
Very
The dimmer lights always feel like they're guilting me. It's like, hey, you haven't moved, so are you living? Like, there's no living thing in here. Like, and I'm like, oh, I'm here. I swear. Yeah.
It's really like the real life version of getting the like Netflix, are you still watching? And you're just like, oh, never feels good.
I feel like it's the old cartoony, you know, somebody's on stage and then a cane comes out from the side and like tries to pull them off. It's kind of, you know, I feel like the room's trying to kick me out.
But yeah, just as a little bit of, here, I'll zoom in so that this is actually legible.
Yay.
As a little bit of proof, this is the Kendo demo app. You can find it github.com/Catherine/Grayson/Kendo demo. But also, if you just go to my page, it's there. You can see here, this is the small change that came with React 18. So we're now using create root, and there's a little bit of difference that's there. And
I'm so glad you brought that file up. Look at you covering all the bases. Yeet.
There we go. Yep. There it is. Can't deny React 18.
18.1 even.
Oh yeah. No, because believe it or not, I did all of my release preparation in a panic immediately before this. So yeah, we're on the most recent version of release for React because this happened days ago. So, all right. On that note, I believe we've got a poll coming up, a little KendoReact poll.
Yes, it's
so.
Up.
Yeah, do you use any of these libraries in the same project for which you're using KendoReact? MUI or MUI, Material UI, Ant Design, Tailwind CSS, AGGrid, or none or a different library? So let us know what you're using alongside KendoReact.
I wish we would have done this one for Angular. I'm super curious, like what other people are using. Ooh, we've got some that are using the formerly Material UI. Why is it MUI now? Like, is that, are we not allowed to call it Material?
Oh, but I like the like print style approach to the library formerly known as the Material UI. So yeah, a handful of MUI users, a smattering of Tailwind folks, but mostly a lot of KendoReact specific. It's very interesting.
Really, I feel like none and others should have been on different lines. that way we're sure, is it none or is it other? Because now I'm like, wait, did we miss one or?
None of the big guys.
Yeah. There's a lot of libraries out there. No matter which one of the JavaScript libraries you're working with, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's always going to be little stuff, right? Like, you know, trying to think of other like Moment, the like time one, or some other like D3 for complex data viz. I could totally see lots of other libraries that would complement Kendo well, but are not. I'm interested in the Tailwind folks. I wish we could like have a conversation now.
No, I know. We recently did a Tailwind one. I think I'm gonna do this more on the our Code It live stream for UI Mondays. I'm gonna do a little bit more Tailwind content and just like pairing Tailwind. I'm gonna do a workshop at ngConf with like all about Tailwind, and one of the sections is going to be, and actually a talk I'm also giving at ngConf is specifically around how to elegantly make Tailwind work well with things like Kendo UI or other libraries. So I think I don't know, yeah, I wish we were having coffee right now. I could pick the 4%'s brain and how you're liking it and how it's going. You should hit us up on Twitter, but I think it's Carl's turn now. I will.
Yeah, I think it might be my turn. I'm looking at the clock, and I believe that we have maybe a couple more minutes that we could dedicate to React. So I have
just a little bit early, so feel free to jump in.
That is A-okay. There's a couple of questions that I've just selected in the background. So if people kind of saw me looking down into a corner, I was kind of paying attention to the chat. And one of the questions that popped up, and I can cover this now since it covers all of the Kendo UI products, is, why are we seeing some different components in one library versus another? So we saw some new components on the Angular side, some new components on the React side. Some were the same, so the map, for example. But why do we see kind of that difference there? And one of the main kind of advantages of the Kendo UI library, or the Kendo UI bundle, I should say, is that each one of the products, so jQuery, Angular, React, and Vue, they're all built from the ground up. So that means that we're not taking, the jQuery components and wrapping around them, to offer all these components. We're building something from scratch, just to make sure that we can deeply integrate into the framework. So, for example, for the Angular folks, you see that we use ng templates everywhere, right? That's a very Angular specific thing. On the React side, you see a lot of custom renderers and render props that we could use, right, to be able to help customize the components. So instead of just providing the equivalent templating structure that Angular has on the React side. So with that, we of course have a lot of different people. We have Angular folks, we have React folks, jQuery, and Vue folks, and they all kind of need different things along the way. So as we're building these libraries, we're constantly gathering feedback, either through the feedback portal. I chat a lot with folks, so if I haven't chatted with you one-on-one, I'm looking forward to being able to do that in the future. And just making sure that as we're evolving the libraries, that for the customers that we currently have, they have the features and component sets that they need. So that's why, for example, there might be a component like the PivotGrid that might arrive a little bit early in one library, and then once we take care of a couple of other components for let's say Angular in this case, then we're able to introduce the PivotGrid there and then continue to evolve the library. So, and sometimes you never know, it can also be that the frameworks might throw us for a little bit of a curveball, for example, Angular 14, who knows what that could bring, and it might require us as a component vendor to be able to focus a little bit more on the actual support for the framework and the new features that are coming out. And it's the same thing with React 18. We have compatibility with React 18, but there might be some features in the future that we want to take advantage of that rather than maybe, release 10 new components, we focus on how we can take advantage of the underlying framework itself. So that's kind of why you see the difference. But if you're missing a component, we have the feedback portal, we have our support ticketing system, and everything that we mentioned today so far on the Angular and on the React side, that has been brought up by you lovely folks. So that we listen to you, we make sure that every single thing on our roadmap is either something that has been requested or we know is going to build towards something that has been requested, because sometimes we need to introduce underlying component like the standalone drag and drop utility that we have on the React side in order to be able to improve our drag and drop with the next release. So everything that we're doing has you folks in mind as we continue to evolve the product there.
Yeah, I think Bill asked a question earlier asking about dragging an item from one ListBox to another, and I think it's those kind of things as far as, well, this is our first iteration, so not yet, but if you do see something that is missing or not compatible, like with one of our other frameworks, and you're like, why exactly? We'd love to hear from you, because we probably have it prioritized, but maybe we could bump it up. So
yeah, our ultimate goal is to be able to have, of course, 100%, one-to-one connection between all the libraries and in the various different stages of age too. jQuery is the oldest, right? And then has a lot more features and maybe some more components, but then React and Angular, they were all started at different times as well. So these libraries weren't started on the same day as well. So it depends a little bit on the stage they're in, and which is why when we talk about Vue, we might see a lot of components be added in a release as we're catching up to the other libraries. So
I know, right?
It's always
Did
exciting.
You see that list that you get to go?
Yeah.
You had a big release this time.
I was like, what happened? Like, why, Carl? Why?
You guys were busy.
Why?
Yeah, the Vue team was very busy.
Do you know the number?
Yeah.
Is it 9? What was the number?
It's 9. Yep, cool. Yep, we were able to release 9 components between R1 and R2, and of course, ensuring that we update existing components, add in some features there, and did a couple more things. So the Vue section will be coming soon. First, we'll cover jQuery, and then we'll jump into Vue. We'll kind of wrap up today with Vue components. Now, we also have a question that's very interesting. Is there any advantage of using the .NET Core UI components that we have versus pure JavaScript components? Like, for example,
I mean, other than that .NET's cool, right? I mean,
yeah, and really, I'm gonna take my favorite expression that I learned in Australia, which is different horses for different courses. So it really depends on the approach that you want to take as you're building your application. ASP.NET Core provides a different approach to developing your UI. You have either HTML helpers or tag helpers, which, if you're not familiar with the difference there, we have a lot of content covering that in our demos and documentation. And it's just a different way of structuring your application. Ultimately, you have the same components, a lot of the same features. So it really kind of depends. Do you prefer to go that way? Do you prefer Angular? Do you prefer React? Do you prefer jQuery? Do you prefer Vue? What we generally recommend, there's no real advantage that our component set necessarily offers in one version or the other, but it comes down to the underlying framework and what you're kind of looking for and what you prefer. Some folks on the .NET side prefer to write things using .NET, and JavaScript folks prefer writing stuff on the JavaScript side. And then each of the JavaScript libraries / frameworks, however you want to label them as, they all have their own individual pros and cons, and we try to make sure that no matter which framework you decide on, we have the same set of great components for you.
And Carl, I don't know if you know this, but I'm doing a talk right now on the circuit called Deploying Your JavaScript App Anywhere with .NET MAUI. And so you're asking, is there an advantage using either one? You could use both, and I have shipped both.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
.NET
and
.NET, it's not called Kendo UI, .NET components, our .NET components, alongside an Angular Kendo UI app that was inside of a MAUI Blazor web view, and I shipped it to the App Store. So I'm telling you, things are possible that maybe shouldn't be possible, but they're possible. So
why not discussion? You can do that.
You can do that.
Yeah, you can, but should you? No, I'm just kidding. That sounds like quite an interesting experience.
Sounds very Jurassic Park. Like, right? They were so concerned with whether
the new dinosaur. Yeah. Yes. I think all of our components should be used all together, but no, I'm excited to hear about Vue and jQuery. So tell us more, Carl.
Yes, let's go ahead with that, because now we're caught up. I just wanted to take some time to cover those questions for folks, since we did have a little bit of, these popped up during the React section. So I wanted to make sure we could talk about it a little bit. All right. So everybody should be seeing my screen where we are going to talk about Kendo UI for jQuery. Now, that is a big teaser because immediately I'm going to ask you a quick poll question.
Oh, that's so mean.
I know, right? I feel a little bit bad for it. So the question is, how do you feel about our Kendo UI productivity tools? You might have seen them in Alyssa's section, and we'll talk a little bit about them as well in the Kendo UI for jQuery section here as well. But for those of you that are kind of hanging around and got to see that, didn't get to necessarily answer the question, we just want to ask you kind of, again, what you feel about them, right? They look useful, I plan to use them, I already use them, or I don't feel like I need them. Now, we didn't show off the jQuery ones. However, they will be a part of this demo section that's coming up here, and at least we'll be able to talk about it as I go through the slides. We are looking at roughly 15 minutes or so for the jQuery components and then the Vue components. So we do have quite a lot to cover. So I might not be able to show off everything, but I'll be able to show you what at least the productivity tools, the main page you can go to within the Visual Studio Code Marketplace, so you can find them and download them and install them for yourself. All right, so we see a lot of folks here that they look useful, plan to try them, and we love to hear that. We definitely want to make sure that we can continue to evolve them and add really all these kind of features that will make you more productive when working with the Kendo UI components, no matter which flavor that you're looking to add them or looking to work with. There we go. I'll go ahead and probably jump back into my slides here, thanks to the lovely folks that we have in the background helping organize things here. But let's jump into Kendo UI for jQuery. So we have a lot of exciting new features here. So first of all, we have two new components, the color gradient and the circular progress bar. The dark mode and the docs and demos, like we just covered on the React side and on the Angular side, that's also available in jQuery. We have the improved accessibility swatch, which both Alyssa and Catherine mentioned, but we'll dive a little bit into that. The Visual Studio Code productivity tools, we have some tree view updates, we have some color picker changes that go along with the color gradient, and we have accessibility improvements across the board and more. So I might not be able to cover absolutely everything on the jQuery side. Now the color gradient, as we can see on the right-hand side, is, well, it's a gradient. So it allows you to be able to display this type of gradient that you can either plug in a hex value, you can plug in the RGB value, or you have this nice little user experience for being able to pick a color. And you might have seen this previously as a part of the color picker, but in the color picker, you need to kind of hide it behind a drop-down. And sometimes you just want to be able to display a color gradient within your application without hiding it anywhere. So this is why we introduced this as a standalone component to give you the flexibility of being able to choose, do we want to have it in a drop-down, or do we want to have this UX kind of displayed constantly within our application? Now, the next component that we added is the circular progress bar. So I know I have some text up here, so as I'm talking, you might want to read that. I'm not just going to read off the slides. I prefer to kind of chat a little bit about the components. But the circular progress bar provides you a way of showcasing a progress or some sort of process in your application in a circle. Really, that's the name gives it away. But of course, you can completely style the color that you want to be able to achieve as you go through the process. You can actually even update the color as you go from maybe 10 to 20, 30, whatever you might want to do. You can update that color, and the little information in the middle also gives you an idea of just how far along. So if you want to be able to display the percentage of how close you are to finishing, you have that option here. So with jQuery, you now have the circular progress bar, the regular progress bar, and then the chunk progress bar, which has predefined little rectangle chunks that kind of give you an idea of process going along within your application. So you have a couple different options now, which is nice. Now, jQuery also got the dark mode in the docs and demos. So in the Angular and the React world and in the Vue world, the docs and demos are combined. On the jQuery side of things, we have the demos separate from the documentation, but both places we're able to add dark mode with this release. So if you prefer dark mode, like I do, even my full operating system is set to dark mode, then you can go ahead and toggle that on and off very easily using that moon and sun little toggle that we have in the documentation, which we can also showcase as we have a chance to jump over to the demos. And now we also have the improved accessibility swatch. So Catherine kind of mentioned this as well, but this is a color option that you can use within the Kendo UI default theme. So just as some explanation around swatches, so out of the box, each one of the Kendo UI themes, so default, material, and bootstrap, has a set of default colors, but maybe you don't want those default colors. So what we have is a curated list of what we call swatches, which is essentially a picked set of colors that allow you to customize the look and feel of our themes without necessarily going out and diving into color theory and picking your own matching colors. So we try to make that as easy as possible. Now, the reason that we introduced in the ocean blue swatch and that we talk about increased and improved accessibility is because this improves the contrast that exists within the main color, so that blue color, and everything else within the theme. So this just ensures that not only do we have, of course, accessibility compliance through WCAG 2.1 and YARIA standards and section 508, et cetera, in the rendering of the components, but now we also are taking a look at the actual contrast and the visual aspect of the components as well to make sure that we can help increase accessibility. So if you just want to switch and tweak this and actually add the swatch into your application, it's very easy to do. We have instructions on how to do so, and it's really just essentially updating one single reference if you want to be able to use Sass or CSS, and you'll be off to the races. Now, the jQuery VS Code productivity tools. So this is an extension within Visual Studio Code that aims to improve your productivity when using the Kendo UI for jQuery components. So we mentioned this a little bit in the React section, but right now what we have within this this Visual Studio Productivity tool is code snippets and an application wizard. So the application wizard is very similar to what you might have seen before if you played around with this extension previously. It allows you to kind of bootstrap and set up your application using Kendo UI for jQuery and some of our common components, like the grid, for example, is a heavy hitter. Now the code snippets allow you to just type in KJ for Kendo jQuery, and when you do so, a little autocomplete box will appear that allows you to kind of go through all the available Kendo UI for jQuery components, and if you and then kind of spits out all the configuration that you need for that component. If you, for example, type in JQ-grid and select that. So it's all about improving not only how you potentially set up your application using the application wizard, but also making sure that you're as productive as possible when using our components. So a lot of you said that you were interested in these and you plan to try them. So definitely feel free to go ahead and download them and then play around with them and give us any feedback for features that you might want to see or anything else we can add into the extension. Now for tree view, we added a new event, which is pretty exciting. And I know it seems a little bit weird to be excited about an event, but this has been something that we've actually had a request for some time. So we now have a load completed event that really triggers just when the data has finished loaded within the tree view. And this actually works on a lot of the different data binding scenarios that we have. So this is a great event to be able to hook into if you want to do something either to show or hide something as the data is being loaded, or if you just want to know when the data is finished loaded and you might want to do some updates to the component, you can feel free to do so in this event. Now we also have some color picker changes, as I mentioned, and just to kind of explain this, what we've done is taken a look at all the color picker options that you have with Kendo UI for jQuery, and previously they were all kind of stuffed under the color picker section within our docs and demos, but now we're separating out the color picker, the flat color picker, and the color gradient component into separate docs and demos, and this of course also then includes the new component that we added with the color gradient. And that just makes it a little bit easier to discover all the different color picker options that we have, and just makes it a little bit better from an organizational perspective. So these components have already existed in the suite, but with this reorganization, we've also been able to update and add some additional documentation and some additional demos to help make it a little bit easier to pick up these components. Now, we've also done a lot of accessibility improvements under the hood. So beyond the swatch, we've done some improvements to the components that you might not notice when you update to the latest version, but trust us, there's some improved accessibility there. And also for those of you interested, and this might be a requirement for some of you in your new projects or existing ones, we have now updated the VPAT document to the latest format of VPAT. And if you're not familiar with what VPAT is, it stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. I believe that is the official term there. And essentially, it's just a standardized template that a lot of companies are looking for when it comes to showing the level of accessibility that a product has. So that's available for on demand, as you can feel free to reach out to us either through support or through, if you're, for example, talking to one of our sales reps, I'd be able to grab a hold of that VPAT if you need it. Now, one thing that I should also mention is Kendo UI for jQuery on the NPM side of things. So this only affects NPM packages. It does not affect if you go into the TaskBoard.com your account section and download the zip file, or it does not affect the CDN or Bower, which you can also use with jQuery. So this is just for NPM. And this follows what we've done on the Angular, React, and Vue library. So essentially anything that we have on NPM now, it requires you to validate your usage with a license key. Now we've made this very easy, and it's just a quick little script tag that you can include within your application. Just to make sure that, if you're using NPM, which, distributes all the libraries that we have, available to quickly download without having to set up any additional private repository or anything like that. So its license key is just a quick little check to make sure you are properly using the components. So we have a documentation article on how to do this, and I just wanted to give a heads up. We did mention it in some of our release material as well. And again, this only affects if you're using the NPM package, not if you're using any of the other parts of the library. We also added an updated feedback to user experience. So you'll see this little Kendoka on the right-hand side of the demos when you're navigating through them. And if you click on it, it'll fly out, and you'll be able to say, was this article helpful or not? And we love listening to the feedback, not just about our components, but also about our resources. So if you really found an article to be useful, give it a little thumbs up. If you didn't think it was that useful, give it a thumbs down, and then feel free to let us know why. We want to make sure that we can improve any and all resources that we have available. So definitely let us know what you feel about the docs and demos that you're visiting. All right, now I have about, just checking the time real quick, I have about 4 minutes or so here where I think I can show some demos. So let me go ahead and do so. And now what you see here is the Kendo UI for jQuery demos. And over here on the right-hand side, right underneath the menu, you'll be able to see the little sun icon because I'm currently in dark mode. So I can just click through this back and forth here, and we'll see that we switch between light and dark mode when I do so. I am going to keep it in dark mode though, because that is my favorite. Actually, let me scroll down just so you can take a look at the organization that I was talking about. So you'll be able to see now that the color gradient, the color palette, the flat color picker, they all are separated out into their individual demos, which will make it a little bit easier to pick them up and start using them. We also did some additional demos around the checkbox and the radio button that we introduced here as new components. And over here under interactivity and UX, you see the circular progress bar that we added as a new component with this particular release. So the flat color picker, it can exist on its own. So it's pretty easy to scroll through here and see the available links that we have for the flat color picker. And you see now, I was waiting for this to pop up, and we see the little, is this demo helpful? And we can say yes or no. And as Alyssa mentioned in the Angular section, we now have the theme here is ocean blue specifically. So we start off with that as the default. And I should mention that if you update to the latest version and you're currently using the orange swatch or the main swatch that we have here, we're not immediately replacing this. It's not just because we introduced a new swatch doesn't mean that we completely take away the old one. So don't worry, you can safely update without feeling that we switch colors on you. We just want to make sure that we highlight this because oftentimes we see folks looking through our demos as a way to be able to check accessibility of the components. So we just want to put our best foot forward and make sure that the ocean blue swatch is the main color that you take a look at. But again, any of these swatches, super easy to modify if you need to, or if you just want to use any of these swatches out of the box, it's very simple to do so. And you can easily update the default theme colors to whatever color set that you might want. Now for the circular progress bar, again, we have a full documentation article here. I'm sorry for scrolling down on you folks as I tap my mouse a little bit there. But if we click on the view source tab here, we'll be able to see that it's pretty easy to go ahead and set up the progress bar. And let me, hopefully everybody can see, I can zoom in just a little bit and I cannot zoom in a little bit because I just broke something. So the demo gods came at me there. So I'll be at this level. But as we can see, we can define the value, and that of course means that we can easily update the value if we like to. And the colors collection that we have here allows us to define what particular colors we want to have in what range. So this is really powerful if you don't just want one single color all throughout, although you could do so, right? And it just gives you, by default, we go from 0 to 100 or 0 to 99 in this particular case, right? Since that gives you 100, since we're starting at 0. And you can very easily say what range. So if you want to be able to have this broken down any custom range, you can do so, and then just provide a quick hex value to be able to change and update the color of the circular progress bar. Now looking at time, I'm just about to jump over to the view section, but before I do so, I just want to show everybody the Kendo UI productivity tools, where that lives, the Visual Studio marketplace. So you can very easily, both within Visual Studio Code and within Visual Studio, search for Kendo UI, and the Kendo UI productivity tools should appear. If you see the smiling Kendoka, you know you've landed in the right place, and you can just go ahead and click install here. And if you have Visual Studio Code open, I'll go ahead and add the extension for you. But all right, let me jump back into these slides real quick because now it is time to cover Vue.
Before you move on too quick, I do want to
yes.
one of the comments that we got, or one of the questions that we got in the chat. Someone asks, just to clarify, if we migrate to using the NPM package, we simply need to include the key, or is there a separate license component as well? So a little confusion on how to make use of the new NPM stuff.
Yes, really good question, especially if you use some of the other libraries. On the jQuery side, it is just a quick little code snippet that you include within your application. So, you know, if you have a main.js, app.js, or maybe an index.js, it's just a script reference or a little snippet that you can include somewhere within your code in order to be able to validate the license key. So no additional package around licensing for the jQuery NPM package, trying to make it as easy as possible. All right, any other questions? Sorry, I can't see you folks right now. I'm working on one screen. Yeah, all right, great.
I'm in the same place with you. I'm always like, are they smiling? Are they laughing? What's the feedback?
I'm assuming it's just all positive vibes.
I've got 20 windows open. I love keep tabs on all of it for y'all.
It's got like a whole command like system going here with what? No, Carl, I did want to say I have like a last minute thing that shipped for the Angular. So I don't know if you want me to mention it now or if you want me to wait till the very end, but I need like 60 seconds minimum to.
Sure, feel free to just mention that real quick if you like.
Yes. So I wanted to show off because they were so kind enough to show my main screen, do this, make that full screen and hide those questions. Okay. So the API docs got updated and they are now available. So I think Cindy has the links. She can share them out to the webinar. But on the Angular side, I don't know, Carl, if you know exactly what got updated. They showed me this one and this one and this one just right before we went live. And I was like, yes. I did not add that to my slide deck.
Yeah. All right. So this is a little bonus feature that we can talk about in the webinar. So Alyssa, if you don't mind jumping over to one of the views you just had.
Let's do it.
Yeah. For those of you that are taking a look into our API in the Angular side, you will now see that this is a completely updated look and feel to the API doc. So we now have this nice little table that allows you to kind of see all the various API methods, functions, properties are available, attributes. I'm using all the different words that you might be able to apply to our components. And we just made it a little bit easier to go through our API, understand it, and take advantage of it with a more detailed description and just a little bit more information. And this, by the way, is something that you'll see coming in other suites as well. Angular just managed to push out something today for us to take a look at under our develop channel. But this will be something that a lot of folks across the board will be able to take advantage of, and just helps around just visually updating the API, making sure that is easier to navigate through.
So Cindy should be sending those links out, but it's kendo-angular-ui, and then add the little -develop to whatever URL in the docs if you want to hop over on the develop side. So
that's our little early preview link that you can find on the React side, the Angular side, and on the Vue side. That's a quick little cheat to be able to see what's coming in the pipe, but not officially in quite yet. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen once more. There we go. All right, so let's talk about Vue here at the end. Kendo UI for Vue. We'll wrap it up, saving a great product for last. Again, I love all my children equally. So Kendo UI for Vue, as we mentioned, got 9 new components, and that includes the scheduler, the splitter, panel bar, tree view, skeleton, range slider, notification, scroll view, and a wizard component. Alongside with that, we got the dark mode and docs and demos, the improved accessibility swatch, some grid improvements, and more. So there's even more than what I have time to cover here today. Now, first of all, the scheduler, for those of you not familiar, this scheduler component brings kind of a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar experience into your Vue applications, and it's all in one single component. So we've added a ton of features and functionality across the last couple of months. Some of you that were early birds might have actually been able to take advantage of the initial version of this, but now we've added even more functionality since then. So the Vue scheduler is very exciting to be able to see. Again, built from the ground up specifically for Vue. And you can see a quick little screenshot of what that looks like over on the right-hand side. In this particular case, we've taken advantage of resource grouping. So we can see that we both grouped by individuals and their names, as well as the meeting room. So you can kind of see if a meeting room has been booked by a particular person in this case. Now the view splitter is also very exciting because you can see over there on the right hand side that the view splitter allows you to take a defined area within your view application and be able to split it up. That kind of makes sense with the name, right? Split it up into different horizontal and vertical panes, and they can actually be nested as well, which you kind of see on the top row there, where we have 3 on the horizontal level as opposed to just the 1 for each one of the panes underneath. And these panes can be static, so you give them a fixed width and height. They can also be resized by moving and clicking on the handles that you see the little line and be able to move left and right. And you can also expand and collapse them by clicking on those areas. And that just gives you a way to provide a little bit more dynamic layout within your application. And some people use this as their full layout application for their application. I might not necessarily recommend that. However, if you just want to be able to provide users with some ability to customize the look and feel of a section of your application, the splitter component is a great component to do so. The panel bar is also known as the accordion. You can see it over here on the right-hand side. Just gives you kind of an easy way to be able to list either groups of folks. So for example, here you see my teammates and their projects, programs, communication. So it gives you the ability to have an area that you can expand and collapse that has some particular content in it, usually used for some form of navigation. What's really interesting as well is that we have built-in hierarchy support, so you can go as many levels deep as you want to. And we have support for features like only expanding one item at a time. So when you click on, for example, projects in this screenshot, it would then collapse my teammates. Or you can also just allow it to all be expanded and collapsed all on the users kind of willy-nilly as much as they like to. Speaking of hierarchical data, perfect transition. We have the Kendo UI for view tree view, which gives you a hierarchical kind of layout or a tree structure where you can define parent nodes, child nodes, and it can go as many levels deep as you like to. And this has a lot of functionality, like for example, selection. You can also load on demand or even define some templates if you like to, so you can customize the look and feel of every node. In this particular case, I've just selected one node and it is just all text-based. So it may be a little bit boring, but you can do a lot with this tree view. The skeleton component is exciting because it allows you to have this interface you see on the left-hand side, the right-hand side of the slide, but on the left-hand side of the screenshot, where you define a layout of the content that is about to be loaded. And then as you're waiting for the content, like for example, images or data or something like that, that can take a little bit of time to load. Once that loads, you can replace it over the skeleton and remove the skeleton. But what that gives the user is an idea of what's about to come. And it actually has the benefit of increasing performance from a perception. So rather than actually physically say, we have increased performance by 10 seconds, users still kind of feel that this is a perceived performance improvement, and you remove a lot of that jank that you see as applications load. The range slider provides you with a very nice way of defining a start and end of a range. So instead of having 2 text boxes where users just plug in the values and having to do validation on is it a number, is it text, or whatever it might be, this user experience is great. You can define the min and max value, and then you have the 2 range slider handles that allows you to select the minimum value and the maximum value. So if you ever need to have your users provide you with a range, this is by far the best user experience that you can give them. And it's all just in one single component with a quick couple configuration options. The notification, I think we all know what a notification component is. Well, what's nice about the view notification component, and we see that over in the screenshot, is that we have a lot of built-in types already for you. So something like info, error, or warning, or success. So you don't even have to worry about defining your own custom CSS and tweak our out-of-the-box notification component. That is just a configuration option. You pass in what kind of color that you want, depending on failure or success or whatever it might be, and the notification component automatically applies that styling without having to do anything extra. The scroll view, also called a carousel component, so there's a lot of different names for these components, but the scroll view, the name kind of gives it away, allows you to scroll through images, and you have the ability to do this automatically. You can also use the navigation elements that we see here in the screenshot. These navigation elements can also be hidden, so if you don't want users to be able to navigate through by themselves, there's a lot of different ways that you can customize this component. But if you're trying to display a series of images in a static area, then the scroll view is a perfect component for that. And last but not least, on the new component side, so this is actually a combination of the Kendo UI for View stepper and the form component. With their powers combined, they form Captain Wizard. For those of you that watch Captain Planet, that's one of my favorite shows growing up. Anyways, the Wizard component, the power is yours with this component, because now when you have a long form that you want to be able to, that you want users to enter information for, so for example, like registering for an account, shipping, and providing your credit card information, the Wizard kind of guides them through that, as opposed to having this one long form within your application. And the Wizard is really powerful because not only can you validate on a step-by-step basis, you can also ensure that you do the validation all the way at the end. And you can even enforce things like, oh, you have to go from left to right. You might be able to skip around if you like to as well. It really depends on what you're looking to introduce to your users, but it's a wonderful tool, and I highly recommend it if you have a lot of forms in your application. As we mentioned on the jQuery side, we have docs and demos, so that have dark mode, so the same little toggle with the sun and the moon, depending on which one you're on currently, and that just allows you to quickly toggle in and out of dark mode or light mode. The view grid also added a lot of examples and additional functionality. So specifically in this case, we have dedicated examples around CRUD operations using OData. So that happens to be a popular way to be able to deal with data management, or data format, I should say. And for those of you using OData, we've now made it even easier than ever to be able to do CRUD operations. And you also have full examples you can copy and paste in order to be able to just add that into your application very quickly. Now, another exciting thing about Kendo UI for View is that I got too excited. I pressed my keyboard immediately, but that's that source code is now available, and we have a documentation article, there we go, that talks about how you can get access to the source code. So previously, this was available on an on-demand basis, and as you know, for all of our UI component libraries, we do offer the source code, so you can learn how we build the components, and just for some insight into just how Kendo UI for View works. And now we have this great article that allows you to be able to just pull that down without having to reach out to us and ask for it, any sort of special permission there. So very exciting for Kendo UI for View developers. Now, if I'm looking at the time, I think I may have run out of time, but what I'm going to just do real quick is make sure that
what time were we supposed to end? Does anybody know?
No, we actually have about 5 minutes left here, so that, I believe we do. Yeah, so perfect. Yeah. In that case, I'm going to just toggle on dark mode here, because that is the one true mode, and we can see how lovely the view green color of these icons contrast with the dark blue background. And as I scroll down here, we'll be able to see all the lovely new bits. So just like with all the other docs and demos, you can check out the new components with anything that's a new label. And then we also have the updated label for anything that we've added some additional features and functionality to. And we still have some of the wrapped components. We don't have all the equivalent components that we start off with on the jQuery side and View yet. However, with something like 9 components in a single release, we'll be able to catch up quickly, and we'll be able to now, soon talk about Angular, React, Vue, and jQuery with all the same components. But if we check out the View scheduler, and this is what I get for preloading all of the demos ahead of time with light mode. So if you just open up the docs and demos and then select light or dark mode, all the different pages will actually adhere to whatever you select. This is just purely because I had these preloaded before I shared my screen. But under the scheduler, you can see that we have a ton of features available out of the box already. So we have, for example, the views that we have available include the timeline view, a day view, the week view, the month view, and the agenda view. So what we mean by that is, for example, if you pop into the month view, we'll see now that this is a full month, right? We're looking at June in this particular case. But if I scroll down and select agenda, we'll see this is a little bit of a different layout. So the agenda view is really useful if you want to be able to display the scheduler and some sort of mobile device, right? So now it kind of compacts everything into a single kind of column layout, like well, it's not a single column, but a single little layout without all the different events listed out in a more graphical form. Instead, it's all just text, and we get the time, we get the event. It's just a little bit easier to digest on a mobile device. And if we pop over into the tree view, and I'm just going to continue to click on dark mode because I just love that transition into the dark mode here. The tree view, the name kind of gives it away, but you can expand and collapse all these nodes. And as I mentioned, you can go as deep as you like to in terms of hierarchy. And out of the box, we have things even like, let me go ahead and go into this checkboxes demo where let me see if it will load. We might not actually have this be loaded right now, but either way, the checkboxes that you have here can very easily be enabled by setting the checkboxes property to true, and then that will just render a checkbox next to each and every item. I'm going to just click through demos as we go through here. So the dark mode, now the panel bar really gets a little bit interesting with the main dark theme here, where we can contrast it against the black background. I might be able to not see too much, but I'll switch over to main here. So the panel bar, as I mentioned, you can click on any one of these headers, and you probably saw this communication is a little bit faded. That's because it's disabled, so you can enable and disable items dynamically if you like to. And of course, under my teammates, you see that we have a different template than on the normal items. So you can define item templates to be used on a per item basis or a group basis. It's really up to you how you want to define that. So you have full customization options around the templates that you can use. And I won't be able to cover all the components, unfortunately, since there's 9 of them. But you can either go to just KendoUI.com, and that will lead you to a main page where you'll be able to select your framework of choice. And if it's Vue, you'll be able to be brought then to this set of components when you click the little Demos tab up here. So it's very easy to be able to find these documentation articles or anything that we mentioned so far throughout the webinar. I know it was a lot so far, so you might want to jump into the docs and demos and be able to play around with them a little bit yourself. So the last couple minutes here, we're just going to wrap up and mention what I just talked about. So the KendoUI.com or TaskBoard.com/Kendo-UI. That will bring you to the landing page where you can go ahead and select your framework or frameworks of choice and go ahead and explore a little bit deeper. And if you like to, you can also, of course, take a look at KendoReact.com/blog. So my blog posts about what's new in all the products, including all the links to all the demos, all the features and functionalities, all the new components. You'll be able to find that there. And we do a ton of blogging about other technical topics, related to our components and the frameworks that we support in general. And a lot of also design-related topics can be found on KendoReact.com/blog. So it is a great resource to keep in mind. And that's going to do it for today, folks. I think we're finishing right on time. So thank you again. I know this was quite a lot. A lot of you stuck through the entire thing, which is really impressive. I appreciate you sticking around. Thank you so much, Alyssa. Thank you so much, Catherine. This was a great webinar, and I, of course, want to make sure that we say bye to everybody here for today, and then we'll see you in the next webinar. So watch out for R3 2022 coming at you sooner than you think. Yeah. All right. Bye for now, folks.